Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Vendetta Sports Media Show, Daily Show. It is May 17th, 2023. I'm Jerry Walker, and alongside me is Griffin Crest. Before we hop into it, Griffin, how you doing today? It looks real nice outside where you are.
I'm doing good. Finally back in Minnesota and outside, so don't want to really bother the rest of my family if they're home. So, yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
Not too bad. It's nice and sunny here. Been raining for a little bit, but ready to talk some sports. And I mean, let's kick it off just with the game last night. NBA playoffs, Western Conference game one, Nuggets, Lakers, and man, the big men showed up in a big way last night.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what Anthony Davis and just Jokic did last night it's a historic matchup. I feel like we knew it coming into it. And I mean, they showed out, kind of won the best games, like just matchups in NBA history, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely insane. I mean, looking at just the stat lines, Anthony Davis finished 40 points, 10 rebounds, 2 blocks, where Jokic on the other side, 34 points, 21 rebounds, 14 assists. They both kind of did everything they could for their team. And I guess the better team may have won in the end of the day, but it was really, really just those two stood out in incredible ways.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I think first off, like I think this series is gonna be like as close as it could be, and I know Trey and like everyone kind of doubt the Lakers or not the Lakers, Nuggets at times, just because I know it's the Nuggets, and like every once in a while, like they're not really don't seem like the finals-esque team.
Yeah.
But I mean, this whole year they've been when they're healthy, they're the best team in the NBA, and it's not really close. So I mean, if Jokic can keep doing what he's doing, and just everyone else is around him can support him, then I think the Nuggets could go all the way.
Yeah, it'd be a great thing to see as a guy for me. I'm from Denver, so grew up watching the Nuggets, and be fun to see them finally get over that burden that has been the Lakers, losing 2 Western Conference Finals to them in recent times, 3 total, and just 0 for 7 against the Lakers in the playoffs would be a big step forward. And the other guy who stepped up for the Nuggets last night in a big way was Jamal Murray. He's back to playing the way he can when he's healthy. Kind of looked like the bubble Murray, which to me is more that's just healthy Jamal Murray. So obviously suffered that ACL injury a few years ago, so that was a little bit put him back. But 31 points last night, 4 for 8 from three. What other guys really stood out to you in this game one?
I mean, outside of just the guys we talked about, obviously, I think LeBron did as much as he could just because it was kind of the big man show. But one person that stood out to me in a bad way was really D'Angelo Russell. Like he needs to step up if the Lakers want to win anything. I mean, 8 points, 0 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 for 11, 0 for 3, and nothing really much else outside of that. And I mean, he just did not look as his usual self. And hopefully that he can kind of revitalize his series and just do better for the Lakers.
Yeah, because I have a feeling if the point guards of the Lakers fail to show up, it could be a little difficult when Jamal Murray's playing the way he has been. But on the other hand, I mean, Austin Reeves stepped up in a big way, especially in that fourth quarter. I think he finished with 11 or 12 points in that fourth quarter alone, and really was part of that key to bringing them back. I know Lakers were down 21 at one point, brought it as close as 3 down the stretch, and that's something that kind of worries me from the Nuggets side of things is that you do blow a 21-point lead in game one. That gives the Lakers confidence that, if we don't fall behind early, it could be our games to take and could give them big momentum in this series.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, as a Celtics fan, we're kind of known for blowing fourth quarter leads and third quarter leads and you name it. But I mean, like you said, that I feel like the Nuggets can't really just let the Lakers kind of come back in a game because that's just going to, like you said, give them confidence. And that's going to be a whole different series if they let them do that. And they just got to step on their throats when they can and keep having Jokic get the ball and just keep distributing and just play their game because when they're hot, no one can beat them. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just one other kind of point I want to talk and get your opinion on in this, at least game one, was that fourth quarter. The Coach Ham, he changed things up a little defensively for the Lakers, put Rui Hachimura on Jokic instead of Anthony Davis, had AD guarding Aaron Gordon instead, and kind of playing as that help side defense. And it worked a lot better for the Lakers in that. So do you think they'll continue that? Can maybe start Hachimura in game two?
I mean, I think that's an interesting take. I didn't really like get the whole reasoning behind it, but when it worked, like it worked. Having AD kind of come off the ball and be like a help defender, especially kind of and Jokic's passing lanes, and I mean he's more mobile than Rui Hachimura, and I think that would be a good matchup for them in the future because Aaron Gordon can shoot and he can create outside, and he's been very good all season. So I think it'd be very good if they started Rui. I think it'd be very interesting. They kind of had a big man lineup, but matching up with Denver, I mean, Michael Porter on LeBron, you would have to do Rui on Jokic, and then Aaron Gordon on Anthony Davis. So I think it's a very like interesting matchup to see. And I think it ultimately comes down to how Rui, like if he can keep it up like he did last game and keep up that defensive intensity and kind of lean on the guards a little bit for the Lakers, and then they should be good.
Yeah, I'm looking to see what Michael Malone can do in terms of we got one today is the only day off before game 2, so see what he changes strategically and see how the Nuggets come out in game 2. But I mean, as far as the rest of that series goes, I wouldn't be surprised if we see this go 7 at all. It'll be
I
a
agree.
lot of very competitive games. What are your just thoughts on the rest of this series? How do you think it'll go?
I think, I mean, I feel like I got to roll with the Nuggets. I know Trey doubts them a lot,
He's
but
guaranteed that they're going to lose this series.
guaranteed. He's putting the whole lottery on that Nuggets lose. And I don't know if that's such a good bet. I mean, I think Nuggets can pull it out in 6, maybe 7, but I mean, it's just how the guards play for the rest of the series, honestly. I think, Jokic and Anthony Davis and LeBron and all those guys are going to be spectacular, but it's just a matter of how Austin Reeves defends Jamal Murray or how they get off in the pick and roll and if they can slip through screens and all that. So it's all based on down in the guards and D'Lo and everyone like that.
Absolutely. I mean, if they can get D'Lo going the way he can do, and we've seen him in the past, then Lakers guards are right up there with the Nuggets guards and can make this a really, really exciting series, which I do fear that it's going to be. I'm still a little bit on the pessimistic side. Think the Lakers might get this one done in 7, but I just want, as much as I want the Nuggets to get through, I think it'd just be fun basketball the entire time. And I mean, what a way to kick off game 1 of this. So proved that the number 1 defense struggled a little bit, but hey, that's basketball for you. You have your off nights on both ends of the court. This one's defensive. I'm worried that the Nuggets won't be getting as much support in the next games because, I mean, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope got 21. Bruce Brown got 16 off the bench.
Yep.
It was just an all-around good performance for them, and we'll see how it goes into game 2. But your prediction for this series, you said Nuggets in, 6 or 7 as of now? All right.
Yep.
Like that. Hey, who knows? It'd be very interesting going on. But now we'll hop over to that Eastern Conference side of things. You said you're a Celtics guy yourself. So Heat Celtics game 1 kicks off tonight. What are you looking for out of that Boston side?
Oh man, I said it. I said in the X factors, but I'm like Celtics. If they need to win, they need Derek White to step up. I mean, he was not good at all in the first round against Philly, and I mean everyone else played like pretty solid. Tatum was kind of inconsistent until his game 7, but that in reality, that series should not have gone to 7. It should have been over in 5, and I mean it wasn't close. So, but need Derek White to step up, Tatum and Brown to keep playing what they're playing, and Al Horford and Robert Williams to hold down the paint because we know Jimmy and what he can do, and obviously Bam. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a great series. It's kind of turning into a rivalry a little bit, but I'm hoping for just stepping up from some role players for the Celtics.
Yeah, it's another, like you said, a series we've seen quite a bit of in the last few years. And I mean, I think what you guys played last year, was it Celtics and Heat at one point?
Yep.
And hey, Celtics had the better of them then. I mean, as far as the Heat are concerned, Jimmy Butler's been playing out of his mind this playoff. So that's something that maybe the Celtics have to be concerned about a bit. But otherwise, I feel pretty confident for Boston in this one. It just seems like overall the team's a little deeper, a little bit more experienced. Obviously made that run last year to the finals where they lost to the Warriors. But it's going to be kind of that battle, in my opinion, between Jason Tatum and Jimmy Butler, and that could be a difference maker to an extent.
Yeah, I agree. I think I also said in kind of the whole X factor is I didn't really talk about Kevin Love that much because I don't really want to say him because I know everyone's kind of saying him as like the Heat's X factor. But I thought another interesting player was Caleb Martin. I think like I kind of view him as a Derek White kind of ass. I said that, and he can bring a lot offensively, but also him being like 6'4" and kind of even spreading out the floor, making the Heat's lineup a little bit bigger, possibly putting him at the point, having Kevin Love, Jimmy, Bam, and Gabe Vincent, having Lowry come off the bench again. But that kind of favors, I would say, the Heat just because that would force Robert Williams and Horford to be on at the same time to guard Love and Bam. So, I mean, you could tire him out that way, but the Heat seem so much deeper than before because Kyle Lowry in last year's series was not really relevant almost, and the Celtics kind of used him against the Heat for the advantage. But he's kind of stepped up in this playoffs, so he could be a big reason why the Heat kind of moved past. But as a Celtics fan, I really can't doubt anything with the Heat. I mean, we've kind of gotten scared by them a little bit, so it'll be a good series.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, regular season series was split. Celtics won one in Miami, one at home, and then the Heat won one at home and one in Boston. So both teams proven that they can win it away, and that could be a big difference here, especially early on, because that's something in the Nuggets series that I think home court advantage will be very big there. This one, I think it'll be kind of maybe whoever gets that first road win could have some momentum because we saw Boston win in Philadelphia. We saw Miami win on the road in New York and Milwaukee. So what are your thoughts on kind of that road and home aspect of it?
I mean, I feel like Boston has been very good on the road. I don't know how their kind of regular season standings like come up with away wins, but it feels like they haven't had kind of too much effect in playing in away arenas. I know Miami's a different beast when it comes to the playoffs and the white hot, but I don't know. I feel like it's just going to come down to just who can really obtain momentum first in this series and kind of take it from there. Because if Boston can snag one game away and possibly like go 3-1 coming back to Boston, I think that series is over.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Hard to disagree with that. If we've seen it all before, 3-1 leads, some of the hardest to come back in. And I mean, I feel like if Boston is a 3-1 lead, playing at home, they're almost guaranteed to win it because that Garden will be absolutely electric for that kind of game and a chance to get back to the NBA Finals. But what other aspects of this series are you looking at? Because I know me personally, I'm looking to see how Jaylen Brown does because he's kind of been flying under that radar in these playoffs while still putting up really good numbers and playing really well in that second role behind Jason Tatum.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really view Brown as kind of like the number 2 guy compared to Tatum, especially I feel like they kind of coincide with each other. And like if they both play well, I think there's no beating Boston, really. And that's not kind of coming from the Celtics fan, but if you look at like kind of the stats and like backing up, like if they both score like 30 or above 25, like each game, like they're bound to win that game. So, I mean, I kind of view Brown as 1B. Obviously, he's kind of said in the past that he wants to be kind of that number 1 guy and possibly like leave Boston, which would be awful for them. But I mean, I just hope that he kind of keeps playing what he's playing, and I think that he'll be just fine. So.
Yeah, that'd be a good sign for Boston if everyone's clicking once again. What's your prediction for this series if you have one so far?
I mean, I think it's so hard to really kind of pick this series out just because we've seen it so many times and it's always gone to 7 or 6 games. And I mean, I think I gotta say 7 again. I said 7 for Philly, and I mean, I think they go 7 again. So I think playoff Jimmy's another beast. But what do you think, Jerry?
I'm kind of on that same boat. I think if Miami's going to win this series, they'll have to do it in 7. I don't think they'll be able to steal as many road games. So it might be a home series kind of up until that game 7. But I agree with you. 6 or 7. I think if it goes 6, it'll be Boston in 6. Goes 7, I think Miami might get that slight advantage, even though it's a road game again. And I mean, Boston's been superb at home this regular season, 32-9. So it's going to be tough to win at the Garden, but I think at the end of the day, I'm going to take the Celtics in this series, either in 6, maybe 7.
Yep.
It's going to be a fun series. 2 really entertaining series in these conference finals. It's kind of, as I'm sure a lot of people have seen, you've probably heard, rematches of the bubble. Maybe showing the bubble's not a fluke. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think the bubble? Because I mean, there's a lot of trying to discredit it with it playing in Orlando, playing in a small isolated area at Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this kind of just proves that these teams are actually all very, very good at what they do?
Oh, I mean, 100%. I think the bubble was not a fluke one bit. Even like, I even think it might have been harder, even though kind of the shooting was a lot better, just because kind of the, like no really crowd noise and no like actual fan aspect. But I mean, we kind of all saw those teams. Jamal Murray kind of kept alive, and just, I mean, the Lakers were obviously very good with AD and LeBron, and Jimmy was incredible that postseason. So no, these teams are not a fluke, Jerry, and I really think it's just because they're the four best teams in like their respective conferences right now. So, I mean,
Yeah, hard.
I love to see the bubble. So yeah,
Hard to disagree with that. They've all kind of proven their worth, and we've seen them go at it time and time again. Obviously, Celtics making deep runs, Lakers, Nuggets have made a couple, and the Heat are always seem to be there. Only other thing in this matchup I'm excited about for at least the Celtics, that coaching matchup, because I think Eric Spoelstra is one of the better coaches we've seen in a long time.
mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you have the Celtics coach whose name I'm just blanking on right now.
Joe Mazzulla.
Joe Mazzulla, but this is what his first season in Boston. So,
Yep.
do you think there's any aspect of that of Spoelstra's been there and done this before, and Mazzulla's kind of leading his first charge?
I mean, yeah, that's a point that I did not think about. I think that Spoelstra is obviously the way more experienced head coach. He's probably the best in playoffs right now. And Joe Mazzulla seems like he's been the worst. He's been worse than Darvin Ham and Spoelstra. Nuggets coach, is it Malone?
Yeah.
Who's a Nuggets coach?
Yeah, Michael Malone.
Yep. But I mean, Mazzulla's kind of had some mistakes in this playoffs, especially, and I just want him to play just a little clean, just be kind of cognizant of what players are out there and what he's actually like kind of putting into the.
Yeah, absolutely. Cut out a little bit there at the end, at least on my end, but it's going to be an exciting series nonetheless. But while we have the four best teams, a lot of the eyes last night were on some of the worst teams in the regular season. The NBA draft lottery, the race for Victor Wembanyama, the 19-year-old French star that's apparently going to be the biggest generational talent the NBA seen since LeBron at least. And the Spurs ended up being that lucky team that gets that number one pick in the shot at Victor. What are you just initial thoughts on how the lottery panned out and how you think Victor might do in San Antonio?
I mean, I think that's probably the best landing spot that he could have gone to outside of Charlotte. My opinion, I think Houston has way too many bigs, kind of really to go around and what they're actually like building. Too many on-ball scorers, but I like the San Antonio pick. Popovich is probably going to come back for a few more seasons, which I kind of like to see. And I know Chickster was thrilled that Wembanyama is going to Spurs.
Oh yeah,
but I love the Spurs young core with like Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, and I mean we could see the next Tim Duncan on our hands right now with that kind of Spurs lineup going.
Absolutely. I mean, that was my initial thought when I saw the Spurs got that first pick. Is we've seen Popovich with first, what was it, David Robinson, then Tim Duncan, and now they get another generational big.
Yep.
He knows how to work with these young bigs and make them even better. And I think, like you said, the core around him in San Antonio will be superb. And it's what hasn't been very often that we've seen the Spurs not in the playoffs. I think this is the kind of guy that gets them back into that playoffs and maybe even a title in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love the Victor Wembanyama hype. I know that kind of everyone's kind of meat riding him a little bit just because he's 7'4", he's big, like he's like KD, and but I mean, he is a skinny guy, and I think that he will need to fill out kind of like Giannis and improve on his 3-point shooting. And he shot I think 28% from three last season, so I think just consistency is what he needs, and kind of just get that NBA experience and kind of get that wake-up call that rookies always get, because he's going to have a lot of hype coming for him, and there's going to be a lot of guys running at him. I kind of think about Lonzo Ball and Patrick Beverley when they kind of he joined the league, and he kind of pushed him and kind of got that wake-up call. So I would love to see the Spurs kind of work with him and getting good. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say another comparison was like Chet Holmgren, who second overall pick last season, and then you see in the summer, just among summer exhibition games, LeBron goes right at him, and he was another guy, really tall, really skinny, and ended up injuring himself and was out for this whole year. But that's like the size, obviously height, he has no issue being a center, but he's kind of the, like you said, the skinnier guy. Do you think the Spurs will try and utilize him at the 4 maybe? Or do you think he'll be playing that center role?
Ooh, I feel like there's no way you put him at the 4. I mean, I know he's very athletic, but I feel like it just doesn't make sense to kind of put him at the 4. I mean, you have guys like Giannis going right at him in NBA games, and I think the power forward position, especially in this league, is kind of it's turned a very big stretch forward. Those guys can move a lot better than they used to. I feel like Wembanyama, if you want him to really succeed and be the best of his ability, is put him in the paint, and he's a big shot blocker. So why kind of take that kind of situation out when you have him kind of following guys around and on the wing and all that? So keep him in the. You could turn him into kind of a 4-5 kind of, just because he can shoot and his just absolute size too.
Yeah, I mean, I see all the points you're making. My only concern is if he is in the post, what are guys like Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, DeAndre Ayton? I feel like they're just going to muscle him off very easily. Yeah. Obviously, he has that height and that reach, but I think he might get bullied a little bit, especially early on. And to your point earlier, he needs to bulk out a little bit. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I agree. Any other kind of thoughts on just where kind of people fell in the draft, like the Rockets going to 5? What's your reaction on that?
Rockets falling 4, Pistons to 5. What a waste of a season, especially Detroit. I saw Detroit fans upset. We win 17 games and get the 5th pick, which as of now, I'm looking at some NBA.com mock draft, and they have Cam Whitmore going at 5. I think that's a big bummer for them because those top 3 picks, in my opinion, are light years ahead of everyone else. It's obviously Wembanyama and then Brandon Miller from Alabama. He was one of the best players all season in college. And then Scoot Henderson, who played for G League Ignite, and he looked really good as well in the highlights and games I saw of him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the Scoot point, but I'm not a big Brandon Miller fan. It's not because of his kind of off the court issues, but I just really didn't see like kind of a huge kind of light year jump ahead of those like guys like Amen and Asar Thompson. Like personally, I would put Asar and Amen at 3 and 4 over Miller even, because I mean, their athleticism is over the charts. They played for Overtime Elite, and I know it's a new program, but I mean they dominate and they could have gone anywhere they want to. So their next level athleticism is something else. So yeah,
and I mean athleticism in the NBA, we're seeing it more and more out of these young guys, and it's obviously a good thing. It makes the league very exciting. I mean, always that little injury concern, but to the Brandon Miller point, we saw him have a great, at least I thought he had a great regular season, but when he made the tournament, when games started to actually matter, he kind of disappeared, and that was part of Alabama's downfall as the number 1 overall seed. So that's something to keep an eye on. This mock draft has the Hornets taking him at 2. The one I like is if Scoot Henderson falls to the Blazers at 3, I'd be worried about that. Get him with Dame. That's implying that Dame stays in Portland still, but it's just interesting there.
Yeah. I think if the Hornets took Miller at 2, which I think is probably the best fit for him, just because of LaMelo and being able to kind of dish him the rock a lot and have a playmaking point guard for a shooter. But
the irony.
But I think that I kind of saw like, do the Blazers trade that number 3 pick with another team, kind of with Scoot, if he falls to them?
Oh, I hadn't really thought about that, but I could kind of see it. It depends on if they're trying to go full tank and go for next year. I'm not entirely sure on who the top prospects are for the draft next season, but that's always something to consider, especially if they still have Dame and are trying to win right now. I think Scoot, if they draft him, it'll be a kind of in that rebuild where they're not going to necessarily win right this second. So that's something to keep an eye on because, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of teams that'd be willing to trade up to that 3 spot for a guy like Scoot Henderson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think if this is like my opinion, if it's like your franchise guy player in your franchise, almost like besides like Clyde, do you trade him like with that? Like, do you trade him this offseason to like a contender?
Ooh, trading Dame. I assume you said trading Dame because you cut out a little bit there. Man, that would be interesting. I'm just not sure where they would trade him. I know there'd be teams calling. Absolutely, he's still that guy and still can play out of his mind. He definitely had some injury issues this year, but I could see it happening. You trade the 3 and Dame, or I don't think they would trade both. I think if they traded Dame, they'd keep that 3 pick, but I'm just not sure where the best fit for Dame would be. Maybe somewhere like Phoenix to an extent, but we'll get into Chris Paul in a second, but I think getting Dame alongside Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, that'd be a dangerous 3 there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like where, if they were to trade him, where do you think he would go?
Oh, I mean,
oh no. Cut out. Don't know if it's my end or your end, but seems like we lost Griffin again. Oh. Oh man, oh man. Oh, and he's gone. We'll see if he gets back in. We'll continue. I guess I'll keep talking on the draft lottery and maybe where Dame go. Only other teams I can really see, it's maybe somewhere like the Bulls. That'd be interesting, but I'm not sure it would make the most sense because they have some guard play there. But it's just one of those weird times of he wants to win now, not necessarily going to do it in Portland. So we'll see what happens there. But we'll talk, I guess I'll ramble on the Nuggets a bit while we wait for him to come back, just because I had a great time watching that game last night. I'm still concerned. I think the Lakers have kind of figured out Jokic and worried about that, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we have more excitement coming up. Nuggets in 5, that'd be amazing. Win 2 in Denver, win 1, steal 1 on the road, and win a 4th back or 3rd back in Denver. We'll see. A lot of basketball left to play, but that kind of wraps that little bit up. I wanted to touch on some of the other free agents coming up, and I mentioned Chris Paul. He might be on the move somewhere soon, so because the Suns sound like they're blowing up their entire team. I don't know how everyone would feel about that, but they've proven they couldn't do it with the team that they had this year. Obviously lost the final a few years ago, fired Monty Williams after the Nuggets series, and Chris Paul, I feel like he's kind of getting to the end of his career. So be interesting to see what happens there. Let's try and see if Griffin's hopping back in. There we go. There he is.
Can you hear me, Jerry?
Yep, I can.
Okay. My Wi-Fi, I'm on my phone right now. Oh. It completely, just like my entire Wi-Fi in my house just crashed.
Oh, no.
Oh, God. Okay.
I can hear you perfectly fine now, at least. So.
Okay.
But no, back on Dame is, where do you think he's going to go?
I thought before I cut out, I thought kind of the first team that came to my mind was really Houston. I know that they have a lot of young guys, but I think if Dame can kind of work with Jalen Green and KPJ, And I think that'd be a good way for them to kind of develop more. But I feel like there's got to be another team that really can utilize Dame better than the Rockets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of who else. I would. I wouldn't mind the Pelicans if, say, Zion was to come back fully healthy, get Dame there, back with CJ McCollum would be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't really see him going to many of the Eastern Conference teams just because a lot of them have that kind of guard play already. Not that they wouldn't be wanting him. The only one that really kind of comes to the top of my mind would be the Knicks, possibly. But even then, we saw Jalen Brunson step up big this postseason, so maybe they'll stick with him.
Yeah. I think I'm looking at like just all the teams. The Brooklyn Nets, that could be kind of a landing spot for them. Maybe do a swap with the Raptors for Fred VanVleet if possible.
Oh, okay.
The Bulls, even the Wizards. I think the Wizards would be kind
Him
of a
and Bradley Beal together.
Bradley Beal, Kuzma, Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, that's a pretty good team. I mean, the ball is not going to get passed around, but that's a lot of scoring.
They'll put up points in bunches, but the assist numbers will be
Very low.
really low, which doesn't always end up with wins, but it'd be entertaining basketball at least.
Oh, yeah.
But no, other players that we kind of were talking about maybe going elsewhere. Talked a little bit while you were cut out about Chris Paul, possibly the prospect of him leaving. We saw Monty Williams get fired. What do you think is going to happen with CP3? Because you're saying you've seen rumors surrounding all sorts of different teams.
Yeah, I mean, I saw rumors like a few days ago of him kind of getting the boot out of Phoenix, but today, like earlier, I saw that he's staying. Like he's expected to be their starting point guard next season.
Okay.
And I'm like, why do you keep running this back? It's just like the definition of insanity. Like it's not going to work. And
doing the same thing over and over again and same result.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's 38. He just turned 38. So I don't think he's got as much in him anymore as maybe the Suns are hoping. And I feel like they need to get rid of, as far as the Suns go, either him or Ayton, if not both, to build a more sound team and have more role players. Because to me, that was their biggest flaw. They have the star power in Durant and Booker, but it was everybody else after that. It wasn't clicking. And I still believe that they gave up way too much for Durant. But it is Kevin Durant, so hard to argue with getting him for whatever the price was going to be. You knew it was going to be high.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, kind of the whole kind of trade value kind of went through the roof with the Rudy Gobert trade, and that kind of skyrocketed everything and just kind of overvalued KD. And not that KD's kind of undervalued or is not worth a lot, but I mean, that Rudy Gobert just kind of spiraled everything out of course. And even the kind of trade for him, like trading away Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, I feel like at the end of the day, you have to trade 8 in that sense. Yeah. And I mean, Mikal was the best, like arguably the best player on their team, like third best, and you trade him away for the Nets, and he turned into a star. So,
I mean, that was one of the big issues the Suns had this season was great offense, terrible defense. Bridges, the year they made the final, was one of the best wing defenders in the league. And he still is a very strong defender. And that's kind of something that, to at least what I think that they're lacking heavily is that defensive side of things. Because as good as Booker and KD are offensively, they're not going to do much defensively.
Yeah.
So, be interesting. You think Ayton go? Where do you think Ayton would go if he gets traded?
If he gets traded, I mean, just I don't know if he'll play for the Shanghai Sharks or not. I mean, he just did not seem good at all in that playoffs, and I don't know if anyone is like really willing to take on that contract and really have him as their kind of star center at this point.
What is his contract? It's something ridiculous. He's making an average. He'll be making $32.5 million next season.
Ooh.
That's a lot for a guy that struggled massively when it came to crunch time and when the games got important. So
what do you average, like 15 and 10 in the 18 and 10 the regular season? Not even.
Yeah, I don't think he was ever worth that contract. I think Suns fans kind of want him out of Phoenix now. And I think it'd be good for him to get a kind of a environment change. He grew up in Arizona, played high school there, went to U of A for college, drafted by the Suns. Get out of the desert, goes elsewhere, try and just have a new environment, and maybe that would benefit him. Give him a fresh place to go and see from there. I mean, we talked a little bit about the Hornets and how Wembanyama would be a good fit there. Maybe Ayton would be a decent fit in Charlotte. Give them a solid big man because Ayton still has the ability to be good. It's just he hasn't been the last few years, at least this year.
I mean, give a lob threat to LaMelo Ball and kind of have that pick and roll kind of maestro with him. I think that would greatly improve not only the Hornets, but I mean, you get Ayton to a good team with a good passer, and I mean, not CP3 is kind of. I'm not saying he's bad, but he's certainly not as good as he used to be. So
no, absolutely. But there's another guy who rumors are today, or more reports are today, that he is out of Philadelphia, will not be signing his player extension, and that is James Harden. What do you think of that? Just like Harden leaving, kind of what are your initial reactions to that news?
I mean, my initial reaction was I'm not surprised at all. And I feel kind of Harden's kind of babying out of the whole trusted process scenario and kind of really, I mean, he just wasn't good in the playoffs at all. He had, 2 good games, and that's it, and kind of flayed away. But I feel like he's going back to Houston.
Yep, that's kind of where I'm thinking he'll end up. He already likes Houston. He's played there, obviously, for a long time, became a star there. But to your point, 0 points in the fourth quarter of Game 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's not acceptable from a guy of Harden's standard. And obviously dropping 30, 40 early on in the series, they needed him to come up. And I don't feel like he's necessarily a scapegoat, but there's definitely that sort of vibe that, oh, yeah, this is all kind of Harden's fault for losing that game for us. Same thing that happened with Ben Simmons, in my opinion, because he wasn't exactly good down the stretch when he was there in Philadelphia and got run out pretty quick. But I like the Houston pick. I do think that's probably the best landing spot for him, but he also wants to win now, and I don't necessarily know if that Houston team is made to win now.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they're not even close to where you're in a win now situation. I mean, Jalen Green hasn't really developed into the player that they expected. Obviously, he's still good, but his efficiency needs to go up. KPJ is not the best. Jabari Smith wasn't too great in his first season, but I mean, he's still a sophomore going into sophomore season. But put another kind of ball handler and another guy away from, like, with Green and KPJ, I feel like that's kind of a mistake. If Harden can play that kind of passer role, I think it would work out. But still, they're not winning anything right now.
No, not at all. It's still such a young team, and it's just not built to succeed at the moment. I mean, we saw them. There's a reason they were a top 3 projected lottery pick. It's not great, but Harden would be interesting there. Again, another team we've talked about, Phoenix. I could see him going there. He played at ASU, so has that Phoenix background. So, but again, I don't know if him, Booker, and KD would work out. We saw him and KD play together, and that clearly didn't work out in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Otherwise, is there any other like players who, as far as free agency go, that you want to talk on quick before we hop into this next NBA guy?
I don't really think so. Outside of Harden, CP3, and Ayton, I feel like there hasn't really been any more rumors outside of who's leaving.
Yeah, I haven't seen much either. So moving on to a little bit less exciting and less happy news. Ja Morant over this weekend had a second incident this season of him waving a gun around on an Instagram live video. I can't imagine he'll be playing very much this season. I think it'll be a very, very long suspension because you do it once, maybe it's just an error, bad timing and all that. You do it a second time, that's more of a trend and a little more concerning. What do you think about the whole Ja situation?
I mean, I think it's kind of a lot to kind of handle right now if you're Morant, and I mean, he did screw up, and there's kind of that level of concern, really. If is he gonna do it again? Is he gonna learn from kind of his mistakes already? And I mean, it's just concerning. He's such a young player with so much talent,
Oh,
and
I
he's just
know.
kind of throwing it away right now.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't just been the gun issues. We at least I've heard rumors or reports of him fighting high schoolers when he's playing basketball and other stuff
Mhm.
like that. So maybe it's not the best personality guy. Not
Yeah,
and Memphis isn't maybe the best culture for him. It's a little definitely rougher down there, and it's
yeah.
always been that grit and grind mentality. And
Hmm.
maybe he just needs a break from basketball to kind of get his head where it needs to be. Because as you said, super fun player to watch, super talented, super explosive, and this is all kind of just very sad and unfortunate from a basketball standpoint because it takes
Yeah.
one of the better players in the league away from the fans, at least.
Hmm. Yeah. And how do you think that really the Grizzlies are going to be affected by this if he's suspended for almost the entire year?
This is something that I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but I've been saying for the last year or so, or even 2 seasons, because when Jaw's gone, that team is so much better. When he's out injured, they go on a long winning streak.
Yep.
Saw that 2 seasons ago, saw that again this season. That team just seems to play better without him on the court, which don't know how, considering he's their best player, but it kind of just lets everybody else get more involved and there's more of that chemistry and that flow going. So I
Yeah.
think the Grizzlies might honestly have a little bit better of a start than they would otherwise. I'm
Mhm.
not. The West is so difficult that I'm not sure if they'll be able to repeat what they did this year and get the 2 seed.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think it's kind of interesting to see that really they do better without Morant, and I mean, it'll be interesting to see if like kind of Tyus Jones or Trey Jones can kind of lead that team again, like he was being Point, Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bain, getting Brandon Clark back, and Triple J. I mean, that team is already very good on paper with that kind of all those players, but taking away Ja and them being better is really kind of confusing almost.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some stats now. In the 2022 season, they were 21-7 without Jaw. This year they were 12-10, so a little bit worse, but I mean,
Yeah.
still have a better winning percentage without Jaw than necessarily with Jaw. So it's
Hmm.
a really weird and interesting thing. And I'm just curious to see how the rest of the team plays on the backs of that. Because I mean, sounds like Dylan Brooks is gone as well, so they're losing another guy there. Don't know who they're necessarily going to bring in, but I think it's time for Jaren Jackson Jr. to kind of step up and take over the leadership of that team.
Yeah. I agree. Sorry, my brother's just got home and I have no idea what he's doing.
Hey, that happens.
Yeah.
But no, otherwise, is there any other NBA stuff you want to talk on before we hop into some of this NHL playoffs? Because those are to the conference finals as well.
I can't really think of any more NFL kind of NBA areas. Sorry.
I'm good. Then we will advance on. NHL down to the conference finals as well. In the West, we have Dallas versus Vegas. On the East, Carolina kind of meant to be there, and the 8 seed Florida Panthers. Something about Miami or South Florida teams and the 8 seed this year making great runs. I guess we'll start out West. Vegas, Dallas. What are you kind of looking for in that series?
Ooh, I mean, I'm just looking to see if Dallas can really score on the nights. I mean, their shot blocking has been so good kind of all season long, really, and their defense is kind of the heart and soul of their team. And I think it kind of comes down to what Vegas goalie will kind of step up in that scenario, because I feel like all year they haven't really had a definitive number one go-to guy, and Aiden Hill, Logan Thompson, Jonathan Quick, Brissett, like all those guys. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the key factor with that Vegas team, because we know they can score, we know they can kind of have neutral zone battles, and it's just all about defense, keeping it up, and just goaltending at the end of the year.
And as of now, looking at the injury report, both Brissett and Logan Thompson will be out for game one. So
Mm-hmm.
throws a wrench into things to see who they do start there because it looks like it might be Aiden Hill,
Yeah.
which, I mean, he's had a good season this year. It helps being in Vegas and not Arizona, but I don't know if he's necessarily the one to get past this veteran Dallas team that's been made deep runs, a lot of veteran players there, and they're all kind of clicking at the moment. Jamie Binn's playing well, and it's just Jason Robertson's been outstanding all season. So Dallas is a very, very kind of underrated, dangerous team that I think people are starting to see, oh, this is actually what they're capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
And Ottinger is playing lights out. He's been superb all season. And I don't know, it just seems like Dallas isn't quite there yet, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's kind of been their kind of whole really season almost last few years with that kind of Jamie Benn eras. They've always been kind of that second round team. Like they'll win a series, but they'll not get to the conference finals. And even though they were kind of close to them or in them a few years back and they beat Vegas, it just still seems like there's something missing. And I don't know if that's defense or offense or what it is. I mean, they just feel like they're kind of every other team's one step ahead of them at every single moment.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it might honestly be that kind of that defensive side because you have Rupe Hintz, who's second in goals, second in points in these playoffs, both behind Connor McDavid. But one of those guys is still in the playoffs, the other is not. So I guess there's that aspect of it. But it seems like they give up a lot of goals. Giving up 6 goals to the Kraken in game 6 to send this to a game 7. Obviously, Seattle came out to play, but that's got to be a little concerning. I do think at the end of the day, Vegas is the better team, and I think they will get it done. But it's whether it's 6 game, 7 game, who knows, maybe a 5-game series if Dallas kind of folds under that pressure.
Yeah.
What's your prediction for this one?
I think I don't want it, but I feel like I gotta put Vegas in 6. I mean, that Stars team is just like I just don't want to pick them almost. And they just seem like something's missing always. And I mean, Ottinger hasn't been his best right now. He's 2.75 GAA and barely above a save percentage of 900 and 5 losses in the playoffs. I mean, that's kind of concerning coming from him, especially. So I could definitely see Vegas in 6, Vegas in 5, but I think they're going to be overpowered too much.
And you look at those losses outside of the very game 1 against the Minnesota Wild, that was 3-2. They lost to Minnesota 5-1, Seattle 5-4, 7-2, 6-3. It's those games when Ottinger kind of sells and they give up a lot of goals.
Yeah.
And Vegas can score in bunches and are a very physical team that doesn't give up a lot of goals. It just seems like this is Vegas written all over it.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't necessarily want to see Vegas in the cup again, but hey, who knows what'll happen. I still think the East has the best team remaining. We'll touch on that in a second. So do you think either of these guys, if Dallas does get through, do you think they'll have a chance at winning it? Or do you think it's kind of that'll be their ceiling is making the finals?
I think it might be kind of a hot take, but I think if Vegas kind of gets past and they face Carolina, I feel like they have a worse chance of beating them than the Stars do. And I know it may seem weird, but I feel like Dallas's offense is that much better, can actually crack the Hurricanes defense and kind of surprisingly well goaltending for that Hurricanes team. So, I mean, Dallas offense seems better, but I don't know. It's going to be an interesting series, like no matter what we get in the final.
Absolutely. And I'll move on to that Eastern Conference final, Carolina, Florida. Everything here to me points to Carolina winning this comfortably. Everything pointed to it also that Boston would beat Florida comfortably, up 3-1. Seemed like it was all but over there. And I thought, oh, yeah, Florida played Toronto next. Maybe Toronto finally gets past the second round again or continues their playoff run for the first time in God knows how long after finally getting out of the first round. No, Florida comes and wins 4-1. So this team is feisty and they're finding ways to win. But I think Carolina is just overall the best team remaining.
Yeah. I mean, I love what the Florida Panthers have done, but I want them to win so bad, but I just don't think that they will. And I remember I said in like the first kind of Bruins versus Panthers preview, I was like, the best thing that the Panthers can do, they have no expectations coming in this playoffs.
Yeah.
And if it's like in Bantam hockey that I played in or high school or whatever it is, the most fearful team is a team that does not have any expectations. They're going to go out and play. They're going to beat you up, and that's what they did to the Bruins. They did that to the Maple Leafs, and they might do it to the Hurricanes. I don't think they will. I think their luck will run out with Bobrovsky, but, I mean, I could see this going to 6, maybe 5 for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I honestly agree with you there. It's kind of they've been playing great defense, giving up 2 goals in all of their every game in the Maple Leaf series. But I just don't think they have the scoring necessarily to get through a very, very talented Carolina defense. And that's kind of my issue because Carolina's defense was the second best in the league behind Boston, and they're still in it. And I'm blanking on his name. Who's their goalie? Why am I blanking?
Anderson?
Yeah. No, because isn't Anderson? Anderson went there.
Yeah, Anderson's there, I think.
Yeah, so he's played well in the regular season, been pretty solid in the playoffs, but it's that kind of – I thought they were going to run through the Devils in that young group, and the games that they lost, they were giving up 7, 8 goals. So I don't think Florida's offense is as electric, so I do have Carolina winning this in 5 or 6. I mean, it's probably more of a straightforward series in the West. But with that being said, I thought Florida would be struggling and outmatched offensively against the other 2 teams they've played. And they've proven us wrong so far. So hard to doubt. But could you imagine a scenario where the Heat and the Panthers both make the finals in their respective sports? South Beach would be having that party.
Oh, South Beach would be in flames by the end of the week. If that happened, I don't know. There would be some Florida men coming out. I have no idea. It would be some party. So yeah.
But realistically, what do you have? Carolina winning this one and Vegas winning in the West.
Yep.
Who takes it in the cup then?
I think it's just because I just like Carolina better, and I really don't want Vegas to win. I really don't want them to win.
Yeah.
But I feel like I gotta go. Hurricanes have kind of proven themselves, and I feel like this is their year, so I gotta go Hurricanes.
Yeah, I agree with you. They've been working so hard to try and make that deep playoff run. They've been a great regular season team the last few years, just haven't kind of cracked it in the playoffs. I have a feeling like this, like you said, this could be their year for them. It has all that feeling to it. I would take Carolina over Vegas as well. But this is why we love hockey. Compared to the NBA, apart from this season, you always have a feeling that it's going to be the top 2 teams who make it to the finals. Hockey, anybody can win it. We saw
anyone can win it.
The one that still always comes to my mind is the LA Kings in the 2010 era with the Jonathan Quick team. 8th seed, made it into the playoffs on, I want to say, the last or second to last day of the season, then get hot and run it all the way to the cup.
Yeah.
Kind of like what this Panthers team is to an extent.
Exactly. I think what comes to my mind is that I think 2020 or no, 2021, the St. Louis Blues, that team, they were dead last, going into what I think January. And they went on an insane run. And again, they beat the Bruins in that cup final. And I mean, that was
right doing so, in my opinion.
That was a great run.
That was. And I mean, that one all started with them just putting in Jordan Binnington. That seemed like that was that spark plug, because as much as I can't stand him from all the antics he does and all the stuff he does against the Avs, but he was good in that season, and it's just the hot team wins. We talk about it all the time in sports, especially in the playoffs. If you're a hot team, good luck stopping it.
Exactly.
Momentum is key in these sports.
Yep.
No, otherwise, NHL, there's one other big news. Kind of sad for the Southwest. Arizona Coyotes had a vote with the city of Tempe last night, losing the vote, trying to build a new stadium. So all things point to the Coyotes heading out of Arizona, whether it's this year or next season, which doesn't surprise me. I was at Arizona State for 4 years. Went to plenty of Coyotes games. Majority of the time it was half full. This season they couldn't even sell out a 5,000 seat arena on a college campus. So, were you surprised by the news that they're trying to head out? Or not head
I mean,
out, vote?
I'm not surprised by the vote necessarily, but I think they will stay at Mullen Arena for the 2023-2024 season. But after that, I feel like there's got to be some kind of news that comes out that where are they going and kind of that best destination kind of spot for them. I think of Atlanta. I know that they already had 2 hockey teams fail, but
third time's the charm.
Yeah, why not? I mean, the Atlanta Coyotes, it may sound a terrible name, but
rebrand
it. So I would love to see it come back to Quebec, though. I think that'd be so cool if it came back to Quebec.
Now, here's a question, because Quebec's one of the ones that I like the sound of. I'll tell you the other one in a sec. But if they go back to Quebec, do they go back as the Nordiques? We saw that happen with Winnipeg. They went back as the Jets after they left Atlanta. I think the same thing happens to Quebec.
I hope. I really hope. I really want the Quebec Nordiques to come back. I mean,
so much fun.
Oh, I know I wasn't like alive, but it's just so nostalgic for them. It's kind of like the Seattle Supersonics going back, but I hope. I mean, they have so much history behind them, and just they're such a fun team to watch back. Like, obviously, I wasn't alive, but just what everyone says, and please come back to Quebec Coyotes or that franchise.
Yeah, I mean, like talking about the success they had, the first season the Quebec Nordiques moved to Colorado. That pretty much the same team, the Avs go and win the cup.
Yep.
So they had the talent. It just was, I want to say it was probably financial issues, or it's just players not wanting to go to Canada necessarily at times. And that's kind of why that's something I've seen a lot of on Twitter by just hockey people in general is the Nordiques struggled for 3 or 4 seasons and they immediately shipped him out. Coyotes have been struggling pretty much since they came to Arizona. Yeah. And it's taken them forever to move them out. So I do think, like you said, it'll be one more year at Mullet Arena just because I think it'd be too rushed to try and relocate everything now. But I understand why the vote didn't go down. I was there when they got kicked out of Glendale because they actually had their lights and everything shut off for a week or so because they weren't paying their bills. They weren't paying the vendors. Just a poorly run organization that needs to be sold and, in my opinion, relocated. Yeah, that's where the other city I want to see that has the facility to do it, the owner willing to do it, is Houston.
Houston.
Yep, that's one of the big ones that someone was when they were trying all those issues a few years ago. Guy from Houston came in and was like, "Yeah, we have this arena already ready. We can make it available for hockey. We want to bring hockey back to Houston." So that's one of the ones I'm thinking. There, Quebec, Atlanta would be fun. Well, what do you think of Houston? Do you think that'd be an interesting because give us a second Texas team?
I think that'd be kind of cool. I mean, Texas is a huge market.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like that's got to be a good market. And you already have the owner, like you said, and the arena. So, I mean, why not? I thought one that I thought of was kind of the Utah area. I don't know why that kind of spoke out to me, but I mean, the Jazz are kind of coming, and I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean, really, all they have the Jazz. They also have an MLS team, but apart from that, there's like no football. They have a AAA baseball team, but give them a hockey team. It's a mountain town. It's cold. It snows. Hockey would fit in perfectly there, and I think they would embrace it significantly. The only other city I've really thought of or kind of seen would be somewhere in Milwaukee, like Green Bay, possibly.
Oh. No,
being in Minnesota, you would hate that, but I was seeing a lot of talks of like bring hockey to Green Bay as like one of the cities. God, could you imagine that? The Packers fans embracing hockey.
Ew. I would never want to like live in Wisconsin. I already don't want to, but man, that would just push me more away.
Oh, I think of a hockey team. I mean,
in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Ugh.
The Green Bay Coyotes. Heard it here first. No.
Would they change their colors to green and yellow too?
God, probably some
Ew.
sort of variant. Because I mean, even the Bucks have a green base.
Yep.
Brewers have that yellow with them, so it would be one of those colors, kind of like how Seattle has all of their teams are green, blue, yellow for
Yeah.
everything. So
Like Pittsburgh too.
Pittsburgh,
Black and
black
yellow.
and gold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I can just see the crustiness of it being in Green Bay. But I will say, in Minnesota, are you a Wild fan then, or?
I've got a lot of weird teams, and I've kind of gotten a little shit for it just over my life. But I'm a Wild fan, and I'm a Devils fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say if a team's in Green Bay, that rivalry with the Wild,
oh, that would be
that would
electric.
get so intense so quickly.
Yeah.
Just be kind of like what they were hoping with Seattle and Vancouver that kind of happened, but still early days. But those two states already hate each other.
I hate everything about Wisconsin.
Exactly.
The only good thing about them is cheese, and that's it. I really can't think of
cheese and beer.
Yeah.
No, but otherwise it'd be so hostile. The crowds would be electric for that rivalry. I would give me vibes of like the old Red Wings and Avs series. No, not even bordering states, but I mean that's the one thing that like if the Yotes were to move to Quebec, I see it being a hard time having them in the Western Conference still.
Yeah.
Please, for the love of it, put Detroit back in the West.
Yes.
The Central Division. Give us the Avs, Red Wings, Blackhawks, Preds all played each other many
Blues,
times. The Blues.
Please just do it.
That would just be so much fun to see. Bring back old school hockey for sure that way. Because I know I'm not sure how Detroit fans still feel, but I know anytime the Red Wings are in Colorado playing a game, it is probably the best atmosphere of the season. Love beating the Red Wings. There's no one else that Avs fans really want to beat more than them. Still fingers crossed that while they were in the East, they would get their act together and make it to the Cup. Avs Red Wings in the Cup would be a blast. But this is what another thing of hockey that's great is that rivalry that just goes and goes and goes, and always a fun time. But any last thoughts on the Arizona Coyotes potentially moving?
I don't think so.
I guess one last from my point. Do you think there's any chance in hell they stay in Arizona?
I mean, I feel like there's no way. I feel like it's dead. Like, it's been dead. Ship him out. Like, that's my really final thoughts on it.
And it was his project. It sounded like Bettman really wanted hockey in the desert to work, and hockey in the desert is working in Vegas, not in Arizona.
Yep.
It's time to move on from the Coyotes. Sad as it is for them, but that's sports.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to talk about, or ready to kind of wrap it up and call it a day?
I'm all good for now. I feel like we covered a lot today.
Did indeed. Well, thank you guys for watching, and come back tomorrow for May 18th. There will be 2 more guys sitting in these 2 rectangular squares on your screen and talking more sports, probably talking some NBA, some NHL still, and whatever else is happening in the world. But thanks for watching from Jerry and Griffin. Catch you guys later and have a good day.